you guys aren't quite where I've got you there. We go move the "you are here" thing slightly. Essentially, the party decided to travel from the bar that you were in to go and look for the Biggerth's breath. Because Lance wants to find that boat for some.
Okay.
And so Nephilim and you sort of, rolled a stealth check, as it were. Rovan, with his high perception, noticed that and decided to maybe fade out with you. So you guys are, this is roughly where the bar was, and you guys are sort of in this direction, and you know from speaking with Larissa that Laris, that the bars are, the museums are around this area. All right.
Ooh, have you got the other button here so that we can see? Or no?
What's that, sir?
Because you're like referencing things. Am I meant to be looking at something?
Roll 20.
I halfway through you starting to say that realized that you were referencing the Roll20 and started loading it, and I'm there now.
Okay, cool.
Okay, I'm coming.
That's that thing that we use because we don't have a real table between us, guys. But I appreciate you guys took a little bit of a break and we're coming back into it, and it's all good.
Hey, you did not say anything about you posted a picture of the map in the Discord. And then you go to Roll20? Like,
I just assumed that you guys are going to Roll20.
I'm there now.
Okay, cool. So this is where you guys are.
Okay.
Just here. Loading. And this is where the museums are. Ish. I need like a handy little place marker just for these little reference. Heyo. So you guys are heading for the purple bit, essentially.
Cool.
So, what do you guys want to do? You're essentially in the street right now. How does Nephilim want to achieve his goal?
I want to load in first.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, cool. That's fine. Yeah, you've got the 15-minute ad screen, the 15-second ad screen. Sorry, imagine if it was 15 minutes. Holy crap.
Whoa.
That's the dark future, guys. That's 15 years from now.
What's the purple we're heading to?
Okay, so so this is roughly where the bar was. This is roughly where you are right now. This is roughly where the party was heading, was somewhere around here. And you guys are looking for the museums that you know are in this area. So you sort of like did that thing where you were walking with the group and you just kind of cut down an alley to sort of head more in the direction of where you wanted.
Okay. So let's just...
Where do you think... Where are we going, Nephilim? I'm rather confused. I saw you cut back and I just... you're okay.
Look, things are taking too long. I want to explore the museums a little bit. And they seem to have their mindset on the Biggerth's breath. We can always catch up to them. We know where they are. I'm not sure why you followed me, though.
Well, you're a member of the team. Never leave a man behind.
Or weird glowy angel person.
Or weird glowy, yeah. Also, I'd rather go to the museum. I'm not from the cities. I don't know what's going on here. You've told me all this crazy stuff's going on. I need to get a grip of everything. I don't know how long ago it was we fought a dragon. I thought everyone was going to die. I thought I was going to lose another group of people. I don't want to lose anyone. I want to know what's going on.
Fine. Okay. Well, let's go then.
All right, so you guys are making your way down the street. You got some pretty okay descriptions from Laris. She's pretty used to giving people directions to where they want to go. With the bar being where it is, sort of on the sort of main path from one of the ferry ports to the through to the main part of the city. Like she gets a lot of transitory foot traffic. So you guys make your way. Here, you do know that there were two museums in this area that had caught your attention. which is the hang on, get my map up. The Times and Trials, and then the Modern Exhibition, which sounded more like an art type thing. You know, think Bodyworld in Amsterdam kind of place.
All right.
So do you have a preference of which one you want to head towards?
I think Times and Trolls was the better one in my head.
All right. So you come upon this building. It's this fantastic building. As you've progressed through the city, by the way, and you got it out of the rather dense residential area, you're finding that things are a little bit more spread out. There's a lot more space in this area that's just not really used. Like you've got the city street feel, but when you cut down an alley, it's not like cutting down an alley in another city. When you cut down an alley, it tends to be like you find that it's almost like a Hollywood town, you know? Like there's the front facade of these, like, you know, like this city aspect, but just a layer behind that, there's just open grass and trees, and it's very in touch with nature in a very interesting and very synergistic way with the urban environment. This crazy transition that you suddenly, like, you just cut off the main street, and as soon as you're not where carts might be traveling, you know, it's not paved anymore, and there's just like grass rolling and stuff, and you're like, wow, upkeep must be a disaster. But hey, there's a lot of druids among the elves, so maybe it's not so bad. And you come across this building that really expands into one of these spaces. So it's not actually on a main street. You have to pull off the main street, and you come into a sort of orchard environment. And it's one of these large bulbous towers. Is actually where Times and Trials is housed. So there's a large door, and you know it seems open for business. There's quite a few people going through. You see all sorts. You see some half-orcs, you see some elves, you see some humans, a lot of people who look like tourists, you know, wearing the equivalent of I Love Arelsera t-shirts. You know, there's the gnomes there with their weird little camera machines, and they're always clustered in groups, you know. The Japanese tourist of D&D is gnomes on holiday. And so you enter into this building, and the foyer, again, very natural, lots of organic feeling construction in there, and there's a front desk, there's some signs, doesn't appear to be any kind of an entry fee or anything, so you guys are free to wander or engage as you will. There's I'd say 3 different directions you can go. You can go up. There's 2 little small rooms off the side of the entrance, but it looks like most of it's in the top of this tower. So.
Is that like a contents type thing? A map?
Sure, yeah. There's a little guide. So it looks like you've got 2 temporary exhibitions on the base floor. One about the Tears of Seda Querist, and another one that's sort of a collection of different farming techniques from different continents, and how those have developed separately and then been influenced by more cross-continent trade and that kind of thing. And then the bulk of the more permanent exhibits are above. So it just looks like 2 traveling exhibition spaces down here.
Mm-hmm. All right. I actually want to go to the farming one. I think that'll be interesting.
Okay, so you go and have a look at the farming one, and there's a lot of different discussions of how the presence of druids have influenced farming, how different scenarios can occur with different land types, and what kind of crops might grow, and then the kind, you know, how a concentration of particular races with their slightly different diet preferences has influenced agriculture as well. And it's actually quite thorough and surprisingly engaging. Like, you come out of there feeling like you learned something. It takes you about an hour and a half, but like, you come out of there feeling like that was actually really productive museum time, but you don't feel like you're that much closer to your goal. Like, it seems like, ecologically speaking, The world of Trull as a whole is generally pretty good. People aren't that hand to mouth food wise.
There was nothing discussing like steam powered farming equipment or anything. Then.
Not really, no. It was it was generally a lot of like, animal husbandry techniques, crop rotation, the horse collar, stuff like that. There was some like animal driven machinery stuff that was interesting. Windmills are a great example of that. Water mills, another fantastic example. Something that the dwarves and gnomes use very heavily in the more mountain cities that are very production focused. But generally speaking, there wasn't a great deal. I mean, about the 3 field system now. That's helpful.
That's cool. I know what Nephilim's hobbies are going to be soon.
All right, you're just getting into a bit of horticulture.
I'm going to retire. All right,
it's good to have a plan for after the revolution, man.
Yeah. Get into a bit of greenery.
Yeah, so you head for the door that's marked up, and you open the door, and it's just a hollow tube that goes straight up.
All right, I'll get in the tube.
Yeah, sure. So you walk into the tube, and your stomach lurches slightly, and you realize that the floor is curved, like it's concave, like it's a gentle slope, and then quite sudden, and then suddenly you realize you're actually walking on the wall now.
Cool. That's disorientating, but cool.
Yeah, it really is actually. But because it's an enclosed space, you don't have that same like visual, oh, this is wrong. But yeah, there's a 90-degree transition there gravity-wise, and sort of just walking up this tower, and you see other people are walking down as well. Some of them are upside down from you. It's pretty large. I'd say it's probably like 40 feet diameter.
It's gonna probably be getting back on and off the wall a couple times just to be sure that he's not like.
Yeah, you get
everything's fine.
Yeah, you get a little bit of nausea. Going back and forth so many times in a short space of time, and you're like, oh, okay, maybe I'll just like stick to one gravitational field. So yeah, you guys walk up the tower, and there's occasional little sections where it's almost like a ramp that curves out, and you sort of like Mobius band back into normal gravity to get onto different floors. And you do know that the tower at the base is much thinner than it is at the top, so there's a lot more space above than there is below.
Okay.
So I'd say that probably one of the first exhibits that would catch Nephilim's eye. Oh, that's not the right button. Hold, please. I got stuck on an Atlas screen. Here we go. I'd say that the reform of the Twin Cities would be the first thing that would catch Nephilim's eye.
That does sound pretty interesting.
So that's a little way up the tower. It seems like there's a loose chronology to the floors of the tower, with earlier stuff higher up and more recent stuff lower down. But the granulation is much greater with the more recent stuff. So even though like the tower, the tower itself, just to give you a visual, it's like a cylinder that goes up like that, and then it bulbs out and sort of curls over. It's a very interesting effect. But the top floors seem to be reserved for the more recent stuff, and I mean the whole tower looks grown. This thing might get bigger. You don't know. It's kind of weird. From the outside, it looked like bark.
What did you say the name of the exhibit was again?
The Reform of the Twin Cities.
The Reform of the Twin Cities. Sorry, I'm making notes. I'm doing homework.
Yeah, no worries.
Cool.
Okay, so the Reform of the Twin Cities is something that happened around 900 Seder Querist, is what you discover. There's a few different exhibits in there, quite a few first-hand accounts, a lot of sort of material from the time. There was a lot of propaganda going on at that time as well. It was a real information war within the Elvish nation as these two political factions kind of competed. There was one that was looking to progress the Elvish species as the race as a whole and become one nation driven by magical research and sustained by that, which actually turned out to be not that popular as a constitutional concept for founding a nation. People didn't want to be that reliant on magic. They wanted to be more self-sustaining, and that led to the sort of it led to a polarization in the politics of the time that then became concentrated on Arelsera, the original capital city, and Imidori, which was proposed as the new capital city. You know, a new capital, kind of in the same way that like what New York was originally the capital of the U.S. and then it became Washington D.C. as like as part of a political maneuver. So similar thing here. All the magic got kind of concentrated in Imidori, and a lot of the like military and cultural history stayed in Arelsera. And that happened around 900 SQ. It was a progress. It wasn't exactly like an event that just happened. It was something that happened over a period of 10 to 35 years. Imidori was nearly entirely constructed in that time, by the way. Has barely been added onto since then, other than more towers and more skypod populations. Like you look at the drawings and the art of the time, and it looks surprisingly similar, even though this is 900 years before where you are now.
Just see Shamar in the background in one of the pictures.
You don't, but that's pushing it even for an elf, you know. So you discover quite a bit.
10 to 35 years. The 10 to 35 years is like nothing in terms of their lifetime, though. To be fair.
Yeah, exactly. Like it was so fast, and that was one of the things that really put elves in as a whole off. That's what you're getting from this, was that elves prefer to take their time with things because they have time. Like time isn't really a concern for elves. I mean, some get obsessed with the idea because you know they get so much time. Why can't they just have more? And that's where you start seeing the introduction of liches into a magical concept. But
Did one of the like elves want to like specifically make sure this was sorted by like a specific date, like October 31st?
So it's bizarre because I came up with this idea before Brexit really started getting really like as contentious, and I was like, oh dear, this is kind of interesting. But no, there wasn't that kind of pressure. It was just you know, we want to do this now and sort of be done with it in 3 to 5 decades. Whereas elves were like, why don't we take a century or two to think it over and you know just make sure we've read all the fine print.
Who started the idea for the driven by magical research, the Imidori? Like
there wasn't like a specific person. It was just that the mages at the time, like before this period, it was very contentious. There was not a lot of cooperation between mages and druids and clerics and that kind of thing. Like everybody was very secular, and there still isn't that much collaboration between like different interpretations of magic, divine and arcane and stuff. Like you've seen a lot more divine magic since you've been in Arelsera than you did in Imidori, but the main kind of takeaway is that there was like a fundamental like difference in the perspective that these people had. Like the Imidori was much more the concept of Imidori actually was way more popular outside of elves than it was to elves themselves, even though it was for elves by elves originally.
All right.
Because the idea of something happening in, you know, a human's lifetime is really appealing to any humans that are around and want to see that happen. So, and that's one of the reasons Imidori is a little bit more cosmopolitan than Arelsera in terms of like people in position of power and stuff. Arelsera is a lot more elvish focused, even to this day. I mean, the Queen's been ruling for 550 years, so you know that's. If you think that the mother of the current queen was queen when what you're reading about was happening.
I don't know what the date is right now.
1857. Oh, 1851 maybe. Hang on, let me check. But yeah, like it's a long time later. 1851.
Maybe
Nearly
just
a
coming into
thousand
rain.
years.
Sorry.
If he's saying she was probably just coming into rain, the Queen's mother.
Yeah, she was. So that was one of the things that actually changed. Was that the Arelsera transitioned to a monarchy during this time because it was felt that, you know, given the nature of elves and obviously Rovan, you'd probably be helping to explain some of the perspective on this to Nephilim, being an elf yourself, like in terms of like the, you know, because you absolutely would have fallen on the Arelsera over Imadori side.
Yeah.
Like, you personally would have been like, yeah, no, we should take like 80 years to think about that. Like, that's definitely your upbringing, your culture. It's a slow transition compared to what other races would expect. And again, that's one of the reasons that there's such a divide between elves and other races in this world, because the perspective on time is just so totally different.
I've managed to spell Arelsera differently every single time I've typed it. This is great.
Don't worry. I'm slowly working on getting the wiki to the point where you guys can look at it, but right now there's edit or not edit and see or not see, and I kind of need a little bit more granularity before we can before it's there, but there is going to be a lot of wiki available. So that's basically the reform of the Twin Cities. It was this clash of ideals, this attempt to unify elves as a race, which actually did unify elves as a race to some extent. But it was, this wasn't that long after the Drow invasion. I mean, in Elvish terms, it was like 300 years later, of the Drow invasion and El Natra and these other events that are being referenced but not really going into detail, and you get the impression that there might be other exhibits that talk about these.
What they had before Arelsera became a monarchy, and like, or the impacts of that monarchy. Was that the cause of the rift between the mages and the more traditional?
Well, that's
taking our time.
So before that, it was very much an elder-based society. It was very familial, not like necessarily direct relation, but in terms of communities, like there was that you'd have one or two elders in a community, and then they would talk to the next community over, and it was just very ad hoc and not really very organized and kind of inefficient at dealing with disasters and that kind of thing. So you have El Natra happen. And then the reform of the Twin Cities follows that shortly afterwards, as a consequence of that. So 300 years later,
Should we go check out El Natra then?
Yeah, I mean, Rovan would be able to tell you a little bit about El Natra. It's El Natra is a shortened form of the Elvish Nation Revolution. And essentially, this is when the Drow retreated underground. And you saw a full third of the Elvish race disappear into the Underdark. And mostly religion-fueled, there's a lot of agnostic elves, there's a lot of atheist elves, there's a lot of elves, but it's kind of hard to be atheist in a world where clerics are bringing people back to life every other day, So, like, what does an atheist look like in that world is always an interesting question.
Blind.
They look like the religious.
They look like an idiot. They look like flat earthers.
Yeah, they're literally the flat earthers. Yeah, that's great. That's fantastic.
People who don't believe in gods in D&D are flat earthers. Yeah,
I don't believe in magic.
Yeah, but it's just happened. No, there's a scientific explanation. It's all a conspiracy. You booked all of these 100 people and turned them to stone just to prove this. So yeah, essentially, the Elvish Nation Revolution is when the Drow split away. They began worshipping not as a whole race, because I never want to, like, whenever I'm talking generalistically like that, I want to make clear that it's never a one size fits all. You see Drow around occasionally. It's just the vast majority of them. In the same way that Wood Elves, the vast majority of them are somewhere in the Forest of Emeria, and most people never bump into them, and they mostly just speak to other Wood Elves. Kind of the same deal with Drow, although you don't know what they bump into on a daily basis in the Underdark, but you imagine it's not that pleasant. But they started worshipping a a particular god. Man, this is such a lore dump, guys. You went to a museum. I mean, I don't know what I expected, but
I was thinking that. I was like, I'm pretty sure this is the entire premise of this period.
Yeah, so they began being so the Drow were influenced by a number of entities, but essentially they were tricked by a god that is now referred to as the Insane, a god called Zaxus, which essentially presented as an amiable entity before causing just like after a little while it was like knowing somebody who's bipolar, and it's like you look at these individual events and in context you're like, oh, this just doesn't make any sense, so maybe it's like these other things of somebody else was doing that, and especially on like a deity level, like you don't know who's fucking with whose shit, like nobody knows how any of this stuff works. It's all ineffable at the end of the day. And essentially the Drow became sort of tethered to Zaxus and became very distrustful, very paranoid, and politically speaking, they became very nationalistic, which then forced a somewhat nationalistic rise in the elves, which took a long time to percolate because elves, but 300 years later we see the reform of the Twin Cities, which was kind of on the back. It was like this was inevitable. It's kind of like the Treaty of Versailles was always going to cause World War II. It was just a question like how much time happened in between those two events. And that's essentially what happened with Arelsera. Like a third of elves vanished from the surface of the world, which had a huge impact on food production and all that kind of stuff. Like communities were previously quite often mixed. There was a lot of Drow living with wood elves. Drow like forests. The sun can't hit them directly when they're under a canopy. So there was a lot of like Drow wood elf communities that then just became wood elf communities, and it was kind of painful for a lot of people.
Was there a Facebook group called Drow First during this period?
No, there wasn't. There was kind of a similar thing though to kind of like Moses leading the Jews out of Egypt.
All right, I see.
It was kind of a similar thing like that. It was pitched as a pilgrimage to find our promised land beneath the ground where the sun can't hurt us type deal. Because Drow hate sun. Like the sun makes it very difficult for them to do stuff.
That was led by Zaxus, or
no? Zaxus was the god that they were doing it in the name of.
Okay.
And then, like part of the contention was that outside of worshippers of Zaxus, like they were. Like Zaxus appealed because he was promised, there was this promise of this place where, they could live and be free and not have the constant like, oh, wind, sun, and living this like backwards lifestyle to a lot of the other people because they just don't want to be around during the day. And there was this idea that, we can live how we want to live instead of being forced to abide by the time scales that the surface puts upon us. And it was kind of a weird thing, but like, I guess if you spend all day in pain, like somebody offers you a way to not have that, that's probably something you go for. So yeah, they was led underneath the ground.
Drow are dark elves. Okay.
Yes. Sorry. Yes, they are.
Yeah, I just Googled it. It made sense. I was like, oh, this is like I was like thinking they were called like helves or something. Which sounds kind of cool. But no, okay. All right. What other exhibits are there? Or would you say that Nephilim had a brief scout and that was all the relevant stuff that was worth checking out, or is there more stuff?
I think that's probably most of it. Like what you've got now is you've got the understanding. Like you've gained the political understanding to be able to then look at the situation now and kind of see, because the thing is, right, if like somebody goes and says, oh, like figure out this really intensely specific political balance between these two cities, and you don't have any of the context for why those two cities exist, that's very difficult to do. So
I have the context now. I have to fill in the
but
gaps.
It's now this Nephilim, I would say, make an intelligence check. Let's see how well Nephilim understands the information that's been imparted. And Rovan, if you like, you can also make an intelligence check to back this up.
Yeah. I'm gonna
My intelligence is
A number.
plus. Wait, it's not a saving throw, is it?
No, just normal. So not quite as good as you hope, because I know you got that proficient saving throw being a rogue.
Oh, I got a 3.
You got a 3. All right. So you understand that this is all important, but you don't see how it pertains exactly to the current situation.
I
But
got an 18.
But Rovan, I'll say that you guys, as you're leaving the museum, as you're leaving the museum, you do there is a couple more exhibits that might catch your eye. You see something about the Red Thunder, which appears to be like a semi-temporary thing. It's much lower down the tower. You see this on your way out. And that Tears of Seda Querist one catches your eye again on the way out as well. Like, because you've seen quite a few references to the tears in the other material that you've been reading. Like you know, Zaxxas was talking about the time before tears as one of the things that he was pitching to the drow as, you know, like you know, some of you will remember the time before the tears kind of thing. This was 600 SQ, bear in mind. So,
And the reform was around 900 SQ. Okay.
El Natra was El Natra essentially happened over 629 to 651 Seda Querist. You would have got those exact dates from the exhibit.
629, 651
Seda Querist. SQ. SQ stands for Seda Querist.
Yeah.
And
is that like a Anno Domini type shit for this world?
You don't actually know, especially not having just rolled a 3.
Fuck's sake.
History.
Hey, Revan, do you know what SQ is?
Do I know? Because I would tell him if he asked me, but
roll a history check, Rovan, because I don't know how
is from a village. Like,
yeah, I don't know how
you
isolated that village
the
is.
Drower stuff,
Mhm.
but because they would have been amongst us. But
yeah, there'd
what
be one
check
or
was
two
it?
for sure.
Sorry?
A history check.
Check.
Kind of seems applicable, right? We're talking about dates.
Just confirming.
Yeah, no, of course. It's
An
just always nice when it lines up that well. 8. You don't know. Yeah, it actually, as in terms of like year notation, this is kind of new to you, just in general. Like marking specific years isn't something that happens that much in your community.
All right, so we're looking at the Red Thunder exhibit, and then the Tears of Seda.
You've got the Red Thunder on the way
Seda.
out. It's just it catches you right. You know, it sounds interesting.
Let's go for the tears.
And there's a lot of people coming in and out of the Red Thunder one.
Well,
Seems
we're
very
here
popular.
Anyway, we might as well like check out everything.
Yeah, so you catch the Red Thunder on your like just before, like you're still in the tube and you're going back down, and you just see people constantly coming in and out of this exhibit, and it's clearly got a temporary sign over it, and it's lower down the tower, and you're like, okay, this is like a, you know, it's gonna be here for a little bit, and people are catching it while it's here, but it seems popular.
All right, do you wanna? Should we go to Tears? No, should we go to Red Thunder then go to Tears or something?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I say should we? This is my decision.
Well, we're gonna go to both. We're gonna go to both.
Oh, you're just gonna go to both. Okay, yeah, cool. No
yeah.
worries. Yeah, you got to see everything, right?
Yeah.
So you go into the Red Thunder exhibit, and the first thing you come across is like a class photo, as it were, but in stone form. It's like it's an engraving, and it's this huge thing that's like probably 25 feet. Got a slight curve to it, freestanding, and there's actually space at both ends where it's like blank going in, and then in the so I'd say that there's like probably 8 feet of blank space on the left side and about 10 feet of blank space on the right side, and in the center is this, like, you know, if you think of like the Justice League photo, or like the you know, like the like a graduation photo or something, but like there's people clearly warriors of some kind, like a few of them have huge weapons, others are wearing like luxuriant robes and stuff. I mean, it looks like a giant adventuring party. You're looking at like 30 people are embossed into this thing, and it looks like they just kept adding people to
It's like
either
a Mount
end
Rushmore.
as they came in. Kind of. I mean, it's not like it's still 2D. It's not like a full 3D effect. Like it's an engraving more than a carving.
Can we like tell from like the rocks like how old the middle one is compared to the end one? Like, is there any like wear and tear
Ooh,
on the?
make a survival check, Mr. Ro Van Hon.
I'm good at that one.
I know, right? That's why I'm excited for you.
Let's go.
Don't let me down now, man.
That one guaranteed. A 24. Let's go.
Let's go. Yeah, easy enough for you. So the entire thing as a whole has been very well maintained. So you're not too concerned about weathering, but you can see from the you can actually sort of trace differences in technique and different amounts of just like sunlight wear and that kind of thing, and like the slight differences in discoloration. And this is also like this is a pretty well known method of recording like a large group of people that changes over time as well. This isn't like necessarily unusual. Like so you'd say that there's probably about 250 years between the first and the last? Maybe a little bit less, maybe like 200, but it's somewhere in that region.
Are they all elves?
Oh, absolutely not. No. There's a couple of species in there you don't recognize as well.
Any of them glowing?
It's a rock.
It's a rock.
Okay. All right. I'm intrigued. I'd like to dive
like
deeper in.
it's like a plaque to read from or some shit.
Oh yeah, there's a bunch of stuff. And there's also some exhibits that have weapons inside, or replicas of weapons. There's a couple
on the Red Thunder.
Yeah, I mean, you reading about it. The Red Thunder was active for about 200 years in various forms. For over 200 years in various forms. It was a group of accomplished mages and warriors. They safeguarded the earlier years of Imidori. In fact, or the so it's a little bit complicated because Imidori was founded around 900, as we've already discussed. But the Red Thunder sort of were part of the group that was proposing that maybe there's a different way to do things that's like a little bit more catered to other races and that kind of thing. Being formed of so many of other races, it was very much an Amerian based adventuring party, and it actually split up because the group disagreed about how active they wanted to be politically in the forming of Imidori. But they were very important in like those sort of earlier years in terms of like what they did after the Red Thunder. In terms of when they were in the Red Thunder, they dealt with a lot of cleanup that came out of El Natra when the Drow broke away, and the Eladrin and the Sea Elves just went fuck this and disappeared underwater again. They handled a number of huge threats, like potentially like continent-ending, world-ending, cataclysmic events that were stopped in their tracks by the Red Thunder getting there just at the nick of the time. It's an adventuring party. That's what they were, and looking at what the records of their earlier days are, there's some very humble origins for this group. Very much like I picked up a sword because my wife was killed and ended up, slaying a werewolf, and then I bumped into this other guy, and he was like, "Hey, you're pretty good at that. You like want to come down and do some stuff?" And there's a whole there's a bunch of these like little origin stories, the little spotlights on individual members.
It's like X-Men.
Kinda, but more. A little like there are some cases of just like, oh, I discovered I had this power within me and started casting fireball every 3 seconds. But there's a lot of like over the years I decided to set a normal life aside and pursue this. There's a lot of talk of what the sacrifice was, and there's a lot of talk about like the price that was paid. But it's still very much like it kind of serves as both an inspirational and yet cautionary tale. And you both can't help but see some reflections of yourselves in these conversations. You know, Rovan, the story of the guy's family being killed by a werewolf seems very applicable to why you're roaming around. And Nephilim,
The fuck do I relate to?
the Nephilim, the talk of like the political activism in the later years and how they were able to use the influence that the group had gained over 200 years of saving people and trading at like national scale and being nation agnostic to a greater extent. Like that's why they were talking about, you know, they were ignoring the idea of these like tiny little countries and nations and city states and communities that were dotted all over America, and they're like, let's just all work together and pursue common goals and look after those who can't look after themselves. And just like this, the idea of central government, you know, this federalization idea, was very much like a core part of the group. You know, like the Red Thunder looked at themselves and said, look, we've brought all these different cultures and peoples together, and we work towards a common goal, and we save lives, and we make a real impact in the world. And there's just, you know, anywhere between 8 to 15 of us at a time. Why can't we all do that, like everybody? And Nephilim, that really speaks to you as somebody who wants to sort of give people more agency.
Yeah. Is there any reference to if there are any remaining Red Thunder members or anything like that? Is there a current Red Thunder?
There isn't a current Red Thunder, no. The group disbanded permanently shortly before the founding of Imidori. And the people who went on to be very politically involved afterwards aren't talked about that much in this Red Thunder exhibit. You get the feeling that there was some resentment from the people who wanted the group to continue and versus the people who wanted to like transcend that and politically drive the, like, you know, they take on the responsibility of a nation rather than responsibility of 8 people. But you do read that the funds that the group built up, and you know, in a lifetime of adventuring, they discovered so many things that had never been seen before. And actually, this exhibit references, like, there's a new thing by the door that says, you know, you should check out the Sede Aquarius thing downstairs, because like a lot of this stuff was found by these guys. And yeah, they did a lot of like tomb diving and stuff and finding out what happened before Zero SQ, and there's not a lot of knowledge from before that time, is the impression you're getting from this museum. And the Red Thunder's funds still support a school, the Red Thunder Charitable School, which is in Imidori.
Cool.
And just sort of takes kids in, teaches them for free, has like a huge network of alumni around the world. So like there's a lot of talk about like, oh, this person was at the Red Thunder Charitable School and went on to do these things, you know, like look at the legacy that these people have, like even now. Cool. But there's like, you know, there's a big focus on that legacy because they don't want to talk about the other legacy where they like tried to create a new political ideal for elves and failed and actually made the current one worse.
I feel like I had a day off uni, and I've been in uni.
Yeah, sorry, that's a lot of me talking.
All right, let's get to. I don't think there's anything else to look for here. Should we go to the Tears of Sede Aquera?
It's Tears of Sede Aquarist.
Sede Aquarist. Okay.
Sede Aquarist. Yeah,
I'm getting a call that I have to.
Yeah, of course. Go ahead. Don't worry about it.
I'm making notes anyway, so I can always pass on information. This looks very thorough notes. I'm not gonna lie. I've taken more notes today than I have in my entire university. Oh, Sede Aquarist. I thought it was like one word, like a cool new star sign or something. Can you? What? How do you spell? Okay. How do you spell Arelsera and Imidori?
You have documents for that.
Oh, I spelled it right once. I did not spell that one right though. I just forgot an E. That's fine.
If you look in the Discord at Phil Steve's catalogs in the lore section, a lot of stuff on the cities.
Oh right, okay.
Not so much on Ameria. I haven't actually done one really for Ameria. I mean, there is one for Ameria, but
Queris Square. Oh. Oh.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, it all starts to make more sense, right? You know,
Okay.
it's a real world, Rams. It lives and it breathes, and stuff influences other stuff.
Okay.
In fact, actually, you can make a wisdom saving throw for me, please.
Nephilim doesn't actually make the link I just made. 1d20. My 7 plus wisdom plus 2, so 9.
9. Okay.
The thing that's mind controlling me rolled higher, so I don't hear it. Wait, saving throw, you said, right?
Yeah, you have to make a saving throw.
It's still plus 2.
No, it's more for you. It's like a +5 for you.
No, wisdom.
You're proficient in oh no, you're proficient in intelligence saves. Never mind.
Dexterity.
And intelligence.
5 and intelligent. Yeah.
Yeah. So your wisdom save was 5.
No, my wisdom's 2. My dex is 5.
Oh, but what was this? What did you roll?
Oh, I rolled 7 plus 2, so 9.
Oh, okay, cool. Thank you.
Why is it? I'm sure you'll explain in a second, but why is it a saving throw?
Okay, cool. Good to know.
Oh, that's not good.
Yeah, there's magic that makes people make saving throws, and you don't always know why if you fail. Sorry.
Love that. Sounds like a load of BS that the DM just gets to manipulate shit. Unless there's like a high roll, you're like, now you're fucked in the next 3 episodes.
Well, as DM to player, you should read the scrying spell carefully.
The what spell?
Scrying.
Scrying spell. Where can I see that?
Do you want me to just give you the link?
Scrying.
There you go.
Sure.
Obviously, Nephilim doesn't know this, but as you know, you're not the most experienced player, so I'll give you the freebie that is probably a scry. Might not be. Probably is.
Wait.
So basically, you make the save, and then I modify what you rolled based on the tables that are there. And then it's against the person casting the spell DC. Which in this case is way more than your roll was ever going to get to.
You just did it for the bands.
Sorry? Well, no, you could have made it, but I mean, like even with the tables, will it like change the save modifier? Like, you know, like your 9 was like the highest your 9 could end up was like a 14, which wasn't going to be enough anyway. And that was in like the case where they knew literally enough about you to be able to cast the spell and nothing more.
So this is, if I were to see something that was like, something I have knowledge about or have a connection to, they're the 2 things?
So?
How does it, I'm still a bit confused, to be honest.
Okay, so somebody is watching you now, CCTV style.
Okay. Oh, God.
You are bugged right now for 10 minutes. That's what you, as a player, know because you made a wisdom saving throw. Once you've been playing D&D for a little bit longer, you would just, as soon as I say make a wisdom saving throw and then don't tell you anything that happens, you're like, fucking somebody's scrying, bitch. But you, as a player, don't have the experience to know that. So I'm letting you have the fun of knowing that as a player, but Nephilim does not has no clue. Nephilim doesn't even know that they made a wisdom save.
Yeah. No, okay, I get it. That's... Oh, God.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, God. It's a level 5.
Oh, yeah, it's a big boy spell as well. Your party can cast 3rd level at most at the moment.
It's divine. Oh.
It's divination. That's not the same. Wizards can cast scry.
Is there a range for this or no? Oh, yeah, self. Wait, what?
Yeah, you cast Scry on yourself, and you can see and hear a particular creature you choose that is on the same plane of existence as you.
So it would be an Asimar. Or is that what you're
No,
saying?
no, on the same plane of existence as you means that like you're currently on the prime material plane. That's like the planet, you know, and the solar system and the universe. That's all on the prime material plane. Then you have the water plane, which is, you know, very water focused. Then you got the fire plane, which is very fire focused. Let me send you a map.
So not that Nephilim. This is not Nephilim talking,
Mm-hmm.
right? But this sounds like an awful lot of how the guy would be keeping tabs on me, whatever his name is. I've forgotten his name.
Oh, the magistrate?
Yeah. Yeah. That actually sounds a lot of that makes a lot of sense now that I know that this exists.
If you recall, I've actually made you do this before. I've made you make a wisdom save and not told you why before. This is the first time.
Love that. I love that. Thank you. Wait, so okay.
So you're on the middle one.
Material. Holy shit. Okay. This is incredible.
Yeah. So the
I want to go to Bitopia. That looks lit.
yeah, there's a lot of stuff.
Well, are we waiting for Revan basically, right?
Yeah, we're just
Right now
basically
it's-
we're just waiting for Rovan.
All right. So Hades is like hell.
Yep.
Elysium is heaven equivalent, right?
Well, Hades is like a war zone.
Okay.
So Hades is a lot of demons and devils not getting along.
They're the planes of chaos. Oh wait, okay. Planes of law, planes of chaos. Elemental chaos. Air. Okay.
So what you think of as hell is really the 9 hells, which is at 7 o'clock.
Okay. So what's Gehenna?
Well, I mean, you're in a museum.
Can I just? Am I able to Google these things, or is that ruining anything? Like,
I mean,
am I called to do?
stuff, sure. Like you can always Google stuff, but the problem with Googling stuff is that you don't know how it applies to the current to my world. Because I use some of the basic stuff, but I have modified a lot of things.
This isn't like your creation, though. What you're showing me right now.
No.
Okay.
No. I use a pretty traditional version of the plane.
Okay. Feywild and Shadowfell. Right. So how? Okay. So
And Gehenna is the plane of suspicion and greed. It is the birthplace of the Yugoloths, which dwell here in great numbers. Volcanic mountain dominates each of the 4 layers of Gehenna, and lesser volcanic earthbergs drift in the air and smash into the greater mountains. So, pretty much everywhere is 45-degree angle in Gehenna.
right.
So
that makes sense on the picture.
So you know, like the haggis. You know the version of the mythical haggis. You know, it's a 2-legged sheep with one leg shorter than the other, so it can run round the mountains without falling down. And the way you catch them is by chasing it the wrong way around the mountain, because then, you know, the fact that one leg is shorter is a problem. So it falls to the bottom and then you kill it. That's the myth. That's the myth of the haggis. You know, obviously that's not what haggis is. But it's kind of a, you know, this is the birth plane of haggis.
So which of these? So I assume that as an Asimar, I have some sort of link to one of the planes, the astral plane, or am I?
You would have, yeah, I mean, Mount Celestia or Arborea or Elysium. You're not really sure.
I don't know.
Probably not Beastlands. Probably not Bitopia. I mean, you barely know that you're an Asimar.
How? Like, because I know I barely know that I'm an Asimar, but how does Nephilim barely know that he's an Asimar? I guess it's an origin story of some sort. It's like,
yeah, I mean, well, you tell me.
I'm adopted.
Yeah, probably. Most Asimar are found.
Oh, fuck me. Okay.
So, you know. And also, it kind of makes sense as well, because, like, Nephilim's very much like a rebel of society. So the idea that you're not actually from society kind of plays into that pretty well.
I got a piercing when I was like 14.
Yeah, dude. And that was late for you, for like this world. So, you know, you were really holding out.
God damn it. Wait, so is the Beastlands to do with like what, like similar to like Rovan?
Rovan back.
Rovan is back.
Hey,
Oh, what's up, Rovan?
we're just talking about the planes.
Okay. The planes of existence, or
Yep.
the fields.
Planes of existence.
Okay.
So cool. We're going to the Tears of
Gonna check out the Tears of Seda Querist exhibit. All right.
Hey, do you remember? Wait, do you remember the name of the square we were at, Rovan?
The square we were at when?
I'm Midori.
Where the magician's hat is.
Rovan probably remembers because Rovan has a notebook.
I want him to have the same moment I just did.
Yeah.
Okay, so my notes got better after a certain point, and I think when we're at the square, my notes consist of sparkly cloak, which I'm wearing.
It's in the Discord, if that helps.
Is it now? Okay.
Yeah.
In the general chat?
World law.
What?
I feel like I've made this like over
Querist
the top.
Square. Oh.
Fantastic.
It's like there's a guy like actually building this world with some kind of design. It's insane. Intelligent design here.
All right. So I just saw that Shelly was in chat saying who the F is scrying on Nephilim.
Oh god.
Fantastic. All right. So I just ignore that Twitch exists. So it's always great when I go back on there and somebody has actually said something in chat. All right. So you guys go to the Tears of Seda Querist exhibit. So you go back down onto the bottom floor, and you see that there is like a little bit of foot traffic that you saw in like people who were in the Red Thunder exhibit. It's like caught that little bit on the way out. It was like, oh, you should check out the Tears of Seda Querist thing because some of the stuff the Red Thunder found is in that exhibit. So you go down there and you see some of the same people, and you walk into this exhibit, and you walk into this room that's it's dark brown. The walls are really textured. There's very much like this, like almost art exhibition feel of it. Like this feels like it's a full sensory immersion type deal. Like it wants you to feel like you're in a particular place, and so it feels very, very rocky yet leathery. Kind of like visually, like looking at the textures that you can see, and you go over and touch it, and it's made out of shit the same way that these things always are, but it looks great. And you see a number of items, and then pride of place, right in the middle of the room, there is something that neither of you can miss, and it appears to be a piece of scale.
Oh.
Very similar to the one that you found around the neck of the Suhurgan chief.
Suhurgan. All right. Such a great word.
It's very fun to say Suhurgan. I agree there.
How do you even spell it? Suhurgan.
Sahuagin.
Oh, this is how I've spelled it in my notes.
Do I even want to look? Nice. So basically the same. I didn't realize you spoke that dialect. Yeah. So you see a piece of scale, and you look at the placard, and it was found by the Red Thunder in like 600 and in 641, pretty early days. Somewhat in the middle of El Natra, they found it in an old tomb while they were looking for. They were following up a rumor of texts that had been stored before the Tears. So you guys learn a little bit about the Tears of Seda Querist and realize that as far as most people are concerned, your world is 1,851 years old. And there are items in this room that are 2,000 years old.
Right.
They are mostly unexplained. Several decorative. One has text on it that nobody has ever been able to read, even with magic. There's a few other various items. There is the hilt of a sword. Not dissimilar to your broken rapier, but older. And there's this sense all of a sudden that this big hole has opened up in Nephilim and Roven's understanding of cultural history. You know, like because you've got like your history, your personal history, and you've got like the history of your community, and then you've got like the history of your world, right? And you just kind of, most people don't think about it that much. Like it's just like, oh yeah, it's the world, like we live on it. But now you're looking at proof that there was a world that is not understood, that came before your world, and there's just this year one where it starts.
It's when Jesus was born, isn't it?
Well, yeah, if Jesus had been born and somehow wiped out like 97% of the planet's population at the same time.
Could have happened.
But yeah, I mean, essentially what you learn in this exhibit is that this world, which I will remind you that Trull has about 14% more surface area than Earth. So it's a larger planet. And the population density on average is like 1/10 of Earth's. That's why there's no food issues. There's more than enough food around. There's just not that many people relative to the space that's available. And
Give us some time.
Yeah, right. It's like, sow that seed, Neville. Spread that angelic babies. Yeah, this is why ASMRs are just found. They're the rabbits of D&D. So, hey, I mean, you've read the stories of Zeus, right? You wonder why there are ASMRs? So, you discover that, yeah, the world has kind of started from square one, 1900 years ago. There's a lot of discussion of like texts that have been found, machinery that's been found. Like the world has had an accelerated life in terms of discovery and technology because they've been able to find examples of things from before, and then, you know, reverse engineer it as opposed to having to discover it for the first time. Copying is always easier than new. And yeah, I mean, that's essentially what the exhibit is. It just suddenly puts your whole world, like the whole planet that you live on, this entire shared existence that all humanoids have, in a real perspective where you're like, what came before?
Is there any like theories that have been thrown out there about the exhibit, or is it just all, we're not sure?
There are a lot of opinions, and there's a lot of tales, and a lot of people have written books on the subject. There's a lot of like, there's a general consensus that there was a war between gods. But that's super, like, what else could it have been kind of thinking, you know?
It was a meteor.
It's actually been ruled out that it was a meteor. That's been ruled out. Yeah, no, it definitely wasn't a meteor. What there is also a theory that this wasn't the first time this has happened. There's one reference to a study of scales, which is a book that is not within the exhibit and is said to be extremely rare, found in a very few limited collections. No more than 10 copies are made originally. Who knows how many might have been made since then, but it's certainly not in circulation. A study of scales is the.
Where is our scale? Do we still have it? Did we? Give it
Who
to-
has it? Somebody has it.
I think it's Lance.
I think Lance has it.
Okay, I was worried we might have given it away to Jamal, but he
No, he
said I was
looked
looking
at
for a
it
large version.
and said that he wanted like a full one because this was yeah.
Ours is like a fragment.
a fragment, and so's the one that's in this exhibit as well. Like it says, this is a fragment of scale.
How much does it cost for the museum to have it?
You have no idea. You could go and find somebody to ask.
Nah, I don't plan on selling it, but just be funny to know how much it's worth.
Fair enough. Yeah. I mean, it's certainly information that you could attempt to acquire. Sure, you guys are loaded. Yeah.
Does the exhibit?
So this is funny because the party just came across an item that they really want that costs 15,000 gold, and they're like, "Oh no, can we do something to get it?" And that was where we ended last session. So yeah, you guys are totally loaded, except they immediately went shopping and found something they couldn't afford.
What was it?
You don't know?
Oh, sick.
I guess you'll find out.
I was gonna say, does the exhibit leave any like unanswered mysteries up in the air, like things that were like attempted to find, or like
basically everything about it.
Everything about it is
it's all conjecture. This is like, here's some shit we found that we know is older than 1,851 years, and here are some guesses as to why that happened, and here are some old stories that are told that are apparently from people who lived like through that time, but those are very few and far between.
So, how do they know the items are 2,000 plus years old? Magic.
Yeah, magic.
Yeah, okay.
Studying it, same way that you could tell how old the stone was,
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah. There is one more thing that you would discover. You would discover a name. It's referenced once or twice. It's a name that you might have seen in passing in the other exhibits, but extremely rarely, and sort of in the same phrase as like, gods. And that name is the Enwiener.
You said wiener.
This either person or god or like society kind of got reset back to a very primitive level for a couple of decades while people figured out like how the fuck to live after whatever happened.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of information was lost in that time as people took advantage, and like there was clearly a lot of destruction. Like people still find ruins of cities underground that are like 3,000 years old. Like that still gets found, with the bodies of races that people don't recognize. Yeah, I mean it happens. Like dwarves especially find a ton of this shit. Sticking around all the time. They can't help themselves, I swear. The Underdark would never know the surface existed if it wasn't for dwarves. And they so the Enwiener is referenced a couple of times as being like a guiding hand in some early communities that then went on to become huge nations. So like the elves of Emeria, like a few of the wood elf communities had like a little bit of like had this either god show up in like a vision, or it was a guy who was super smart who then got framed as a god afterwards through the lens of history, like just not really known. He was very insistent on not having records kept, and any records that were kept vanished mysteriously. I wonder how. And this kind of weird individual shows up a couple of times in these mentions of what like early life was like, 1751 years ago.
And Wiener.
Yeah. But this is it's interesting because he's consistently mentioned across multiple continents and around the same period of time, and there wasn't that much cross-continent travel before like 300 SQ.
Riven, do you recognize that name?
No.
No, you don't even want to make a history check.
Potentially.
You can if you want. If
I
anybody in this party would, it would be you.
Okay.
That's why I asked. Natural 20. Okay. You're gonna get natural 20. He's gonna be like, yeah, you know it. Don't know why.
6.
You know it.
It was a 6.
You don't know it.
You're like, that sounds like a dumb name. Somebody made that up. And you're right, I did.
Can I pronounce it in Weiner?
You can pronounce it however you want. You'll just be wrong.
Who are you to say? It's not like you made it.
Damn straight. It popped into my mind, fully formed. I'm not even kidding. You guys are getting into like some of the stuff that made me create this world in the first place. I'm very excited about it. So, what do Nephilim and Rovan want to do now?
I feel like we're done with the museums. Probably catch up to the others.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that it's probably been about the same amount of time as well. We filled it out pretty nicely. Big lore dump session. Nice short watch for anybody who wants to catch up with it. Pretty good all round. So, I'll catch you guys back here in like 3 hours.
Sweet, thank you.
There's also a song.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Never heard of it. So, I mean, I've heard of Bowling for Soup. I've seen them live. Haven't heard that song unless I saw it live and didn't realize.
They made it about a dog, but it's obviously like not about a dog.
Yeah, yeah.
Wait, where's the video? Oh, I don't know where the video is.
You know, it's fine. I will catch it at a later point.
All right, that was cool.
Right.
What time's our session? Like 1?
2:30. 1:30 your time, 2:30 my time. And we'll be back here on Twitch. Goodbye, the internet.